support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Happy you've hung around. First segment, hope that helped starting seeds indoors or buy them at your garden center, the plants. In a moment, we're going to talk about how to get that seed, that get your garden jump started. But first, a word from our good friends at Tree Diaper.
Tree Diaper is a revolutionary watering system that slowly releases water on the base of any tree or plant as the soil dries. The Tree Diaper is filled with water from rain or when you water and slowly releases water over 3 weeks. Every time it rains, Tree Diaper recharges. No pipes, hoses, or electricity needed. Water your plants and trees whether they are by the house, down the road, or in the back 40. Also works under mulch. Whether you're a first-time gardener or advanced, Tree Diaper will improve the way you water your plants. Made in the USA. Check out all the sizes they have available. Go to treediaper.com. That's treediaper.com.
So we all want to be that gardener that has everything planned out and everything's happening correctly and the plants grow and not a failure in the world, but that's simply not the case. But we can offer you some advice on how you can jumpstart your spring garden. And I'm not necessarily meaning, we'll go over. We've got several points here in which you may have not, thought about. And sometimes you think about it when it's already too late. And
sometimes people think jumpstarting means like being the first to put something into the ground. And sometimes that's not always the best idea. And there's other things you can do if you're itching to get outside. You have a beautiful Saturday and you're like, I don't want to plant this stuff yet. There's other things you can do. Right. So one thing would be
the saying is, I'd much rather plant my tomatoes the first time than the second time when my neighbor plants his the first time.
Yeah.
So, okay, go ahead.
So one thing you can do is go through your tools. Now, this is not the most exciting thing for everybody, maybe for some of you, but this will help you because then when it's time to use those tools, you'll be ready to go. So say you have this rusty old clippers and every fall you're like, I'm going to get rid of these and get new ones. Now is the time.
We've done that where we've used a tool. It hasn't been that great or it's been broken and we throw it in the shed. We forget about it and, we need that tool. And, it's broken. Then we try to use it broken the following year.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So go through your tools. You got some half-broke shovel or whatever, rake or whatever. You're like, this is terrible. Why do I keep using this? Do that now. And then you'll be excited, and then you'll be ready.
Think about your containers. What kind of containers did you grow last year? Are you using grow bags? Do you need more grow bags? What are you using? Ceramic ceramic pots? Did they crack? Do you need to replace them? What needs to be done that can be done now, or at least prepare so when the time comes, temperature warms up, the soil in that container that's broken is thawed out, you can replace it.
Right. That's definitely a good idea. Broken supports. So maybe you broke or just whatever, something happened to whether it be a tomato cage or a trellis, and you need to replace it, you need to fix it, you need to take some baling twine and put it back together.
Or you just get the easy step plant support system and be done with it, and you never have a broken container again. And replace things and get rid of things that aren't beneficial to you, that actually take more time to use than what it's worth, meaning the broken tool. That type of thing.
Or maybe you bought some garden gadget, or somebody gave you a garden gadget, and you're like,
as seen on TV.
You're like, this is
garbage.
Garbage.
Never fail again. Yeah.
And you are like, you know what? That person never comes over here. I'm just gonna sneak this into the trash, and you find something that works for you.
Or in your case, throw it into Lake Michigan. We don't recommend throwing stuff into lakes.
I joke about heaving stuff into Lake Michigan, but I literally do not heave things into Lake Michigan.
No.
So you want to look for deals on bulk material. This might be a time where, like last year, we converted to raised beds. Maybe you want to expand your container garden, but look for those deals. Shop around. Ask your social media friends.
Because bulk material is a fraction of the cost as bag material. For example, brand name stuff, about a bag of brand name potting or compost in a bag is about $22 to $25. You can get a half of a yard at our local garden center for $25. Half a yard. A full yard is 27 cubic feet of soil. So think about that. Also now, if you're a new gardener or last year was your first year, you want to take this in consideration if you're looking to buy any of these products, the bulk material, the seeds, tools, because of the massive amount of people who are now back into or began to garden because of the pandemic. There can be and very likely will be sellouts and shortages of some items in the gardening world.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you also can build cold frames or low tunnels. And so the benefit of having a cold frame or a low tunnel is this will literally help you jumpstart your plants once they're in the ground or putting them in the ground. Some people even use them as like a way to start their seeds.
Now, a cold frame or a low tunnel, for people who are not familiar, it's essentially a miniature greenhouse that physically sits on the ground, that the heat radiates through the 4 mil plastic or the hard plastic that the warms the soil, in which you can start planting those seeds or transplanting seeds much, much earlier. The only thing you need to be aware of is, just because the ambient temperature outside, picking a range, is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, inside that cold frame, it can be 80, 85 degrees. So you need to be aware that you're not baking your plants in such a tunnel, that you are able to vent and understand the proper physics of a low tunnel or cold frame.
Right. That's definitely.
What if I'm wanting to start a garden this year? What do I do?
Well, one thing you want to do for sure is you want to decide where you're going to put that garden and how you're going to grow a garden, whether that be a container, raised bed, or in the ground. And if you're going to grow on the ground, you want to decide where you're going to put that and call Diggers Hotline 72 business hours before you're going to dig. So say you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this weekend. So now you have, the clock is ticking, because God forbid.
What does Diggers Hotline do? First of all, people who have not heard this.
Sure, Diggers Hotline is a free service, and you want to give them a call.
Free.
And it's for you. It's to help you. It's to protect you as well, because you don't know what's underneath your soil. You may have lived on that land for so much time, or whatever, but you probably don't know.
Well, whenever we had our underground utilities marked in our front yard, we never saw so many colors spray painted on the grass. We had yellow lines and blue lines and red lines, and we were like, okay, now what do we do? Because there's where we wanted to go. Yeah,
there's a whole 2 feet that we can't dig.
Yeah.
So like a whole 2 feet strip. I mean,
width.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't necessarily know what's underneath there. So you want to call them. They're gonna come out. They're gonna mark the area. They're gonna tell you, stay a foot away from this area if you're gonna dig, and And in this area, you can dig with hand tools, but not a shovel. And this is for your safety, because what if you start digging, and then you hit something and you break something, or I don't even know.
You hit electrical line and bad things happen. Here's the other thing. I would recommend calling Diggers Hotline, even if you don't intend to dig and you're just putting raised beds on top of the ground. For the simple fact is, if there is an underground utility that needs to be emergencyly worked on, they don't care if you've got tomatoes in a raised bed. They're going to come in and move your stuff out of the way in order to fix that problem, because there's many other people that are relying on that service to be restored. So just so you have an idea of, okay, if I move the bed over here, it won't be on top of that conjunction box or whatever's on the ground.
Right. And for the most part, you're not going to run into too many situations where you're not going to be able to dig where you want to dig. In our front yard, we live very close to the main road, so that probably has a lot to do with it.
Let's talk about buying seeds. We talked about the bulk material and equipment there will be limitations and probably sold out and shortages of it. Seeds are no different. And right now we are seeing that with our seed supplier, Seed Savers Exchange. They're on a delay on servicing orders because there's such a backlog. 16 to 18 million new gardeners started growing last year on the conservative side. So everybody, and it's not just Seed Savers, there's other seed stores that are doing that same thing, holding off on receiving orders to get rid of that backlog in which they have, because they're seeing such enormous demand for the seeds. So for our seed supplier, they have kiosks all over. You can go to Seed Savers Exchange and click on the little kiosk and find out where they're at. You can get them there. You can also support your own garden center by buying them from there. Very quickly, wherever you're at, whether you're in Denver, you're in Boston, you're in Kansas City, when the weather breaks, you are going to see these seed shelves dissipate very, very rapidly.
Right. You're going to see a lot of things dissipate very rapidly, especially because people who gardened last year for the first time, now they have ideas like, I prefer this over this, or I want to do this versus
well, with
this.
That 16, 18 million conservative, 86% of those are going to regarden again, and 76% of those are extending or expanding the garden in which they had last year.
Right.
That's massive.
Right. Like, it's enormous. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
So that's something you want to think about. One thing you want to do is definitely reflect on last year's garden. I'm sure we've all reflected if you live in a northern climate, thinking about warmer days ahead, but think about what you grew that you were like, this was awesome, this was great, and then maybe you grew something that you were like, this didn't work out so well. Do your research. Maybe it was just a bad year for it. Maybe you want to try something new. Maybe you want to move stuff around. Maybe you think, I want to move this over here so I have this space or whatever.
But if you've grown something or attempted to grow something 3, 4, 5 years and you failed every year, it may not be you. It may be your soil, your climate. Put something else in there that you've had phenomenal success with because, for example, we can't grow cauliflower or broccoli. We're going to piddle around with the cauliflower thing this year. But we can buy a head at the farmer's market for $1 and put a tomato in that spot where that cauliflower was going to be and get 15, 20, 25 pounds of tomatoes off of it for a very good return on investment. So some things to keep in mind.
We're going to grow cauliflower?
We're going to put a couple of plants in the starter tray and see what we do. It's been 5-6 years. We'll see what happens with it and see if we can make it happen. So it's something to think of. So some things to get your garden jump-started this spring.
Soon it will be warming up, and you want to make sure you can enjoy your yard without beetles and grubs. With spring just around the corner, it's time to start thinking about controlling beetles and grubs in your garden or yard. We've pulled up some Japanese beetle articles recently, and they are going to be on the rise. Grub Gone can be applied to turf or garden or around ornamentals to control grubs and lessen the impact that beetles have on your yard this summer. It's easy to apply with any commercial spreader or irrigate into the soil. Biologically, it specifically targets beetle invaders without harming beneficials like bees, ladybugs, and butterflies. And to be honest, it's the only non-chemical that works. Find out more at phyllombioproducts.com. Again, that's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.